Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. I'm Randall Carlisle, along with Rachel Santizo. Hello,
Hi,
Rach. You're looking lovely today.
thank you.
And every we start out each of these podcasts with talking about Rachel's attire, and namely her T-shirt, because you can't see the rest of her. So, and her T-shirt always has a message. So, what is it today?
So today it's together and it's just all of us coming together, regardless of your race. It's just we're all one. And so that's what I'm bringing out today.
Pretty appropriate, especially with the recent news. You don't follow sports that much, do you? But there was a
Not really.
controversy over the Jazz second game with the Memphis Grizzlies that some Utah fans were accused of harassing the parents of one of the black players on the Memphis Grizzlies team. And they've been asked not to come back to Jazz games indefinitely. And the team has apologized, and it's sort of embarrassing, for Salt Lake City fans to do something like that.
Yeah, that makes me sad because I live here and that's inappropriate. So I'm glad that they were banned. I think that's right.
Yeah, so that's an appropriate T-shirt. And if any of you would like to have Rachel model your T-shirt, if you have a message, not a commercial message like buy our coffee or something like that, but you can send them to just look up Odyssey House's address on odysseyhouse.org, which is our website. This is one of the most listened to podcasts about addiction and recovery. And you can catch us, obviously, if you're catching us now, but you can catch us on YouTube, you can watch, or you can listen on iHeart, Spotify, iTunes, and we'd ask you to subscribe if you could, because then we have a record of how many people are listening or watching, right?
Absolutely.
So, and you promise to wear their T-shirts if they send them in, if they're
Yeah, I
real.
would yeah, I would love to wear your t-shirts. As long as you're good people promoting good messages, please send them in. I would love to wear them. Size small.
Small?
Yeah.
I was just going to ask what size. All right, who do we have as a guest today?
Oh, I'm so excited. Today we have Ramsay Bryan. And if I could describe this gentleman, he is the most consistent man that I know. So consistent that you can find him every Saturday. There's not a Saturday I've not found him with coffee and bananas. He is incredible. I'm serious.
Ramsey, come on down, Ramsey, while she's describing how great you are.
There you Yo. Were you laughing? I heard you in the background.
Hey, how's it going?
You've got to explain that, Rachel. You say a consistent man with coffee and bananas every Saturday. Elaborate.
Well, Ramsay, go ahead. Please tell them what I'm talking about.
Well, I kind of have a coffee problem and a banana. Well, so I show up with coffee in the morning because it kind of helps me get me going, and then I bring bananas as well. Typically for everybody. So after our first workout, in between the first workout and boot camp, we have some bananas and we bond over bananas. So it's the power of the banana.
Bond over bananas. I like that's good alliteration. And we should let people know that you guys are talking about going to Fit to Recover. For people who don't know, it's Utah's only sober gym. And it's a big gathering spot for people in recovery. So that makes a little more sense as opposed to just gathering with bananas and coffee on Saturday, right?
It works though.
And when you say consistent, what do you mean by that, Rach?
Oh, this man. So can I tell him a little bit about us, Ramsay?
Yeah, for sure.
So I had the honor of picking Ramsay up from jail. I transported Ramsay from jail into Odyssey House. And from that moment, that transportation, I have never not seen him. He's been consistent in treatment. He's graduated Odyssey. He's shown up every Saturday at FTR. This man is so consistent. And he helped me with a school project. And he also is one of the best dads that I've ever met. And so he can describe that stuff, throughout his story. But that's what I mean. He doesn't stop showing up. He's even showing up today on the screen. If I need something in my life, I know I can count on Ramsay.
And for those of you who are watching who may not have had an addiction issue, Rachel and I are both in recovery, as is Ramsey, and consistency is one of the keys to a long-term recovery. I mean, sticking with a plan, doing many of the same things every day, and just being consistent with life. It really helps with sobriety. So Ramsey, tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, obviously I'm Ramsay Bryan. I'm, how old am I? I'm 40 something. I don't know, somewhere around there. But yeah, like Rachel said, she picked me up from jail. I was homeless out on the streets for about 4 years after I got divorced. And I just kind of fell off, to the point that I was literally homeless, lost everything, my marriage, my house, business, all that stuff. And I had to, you know, get taken to jail, kicking and screaming. I didn't want to go, but I needed to go. And I spent, a few months in jail, 4 months, 4 or 5 months in jail. And then got accepted into Odyssey House. And Rachel picked me up and took me to Odyssey House. And that's where I spent the next year and a half, yeah, about a year and a half from when I went in until I graduated, through the adult house downtown, and at the same time doing drug court. So I actually graduated Odyssey House and drug court at the same time, and basically had to start life over again as a 41-year-old, and
40 something.
Yeah.
yeah, and here I am. Let's see. So October, Halloween this year will be my 4th year of sobriety.
Wow.
So, it's been, I want to say it's been a long road, but it's gone so quick. It's gone very quick. But I mean, here I am. I have a good job. I've 2 kids. I have a good life right now. I can't complain.
And so being on the streets, you come from Rio Grande, that's the place that you called home, and you were a part of Operation Rio Grande. I remember you speaking, and so can you let us know what Operation Rio Grande is and how that saved your life?
Yeah, so the Operation Rio Grande, yeah, basically I guess the city, the county, state got sick of it because it was pretty much an open air drug market, literally right downtown. I mean, pretty much south of the Gateway, within about a 4-block area, Pioneer Park, that whole area down there was just, it was madness. And that's where, I mean, there in North Temple, over by the fairgrounds where we hung out, and it was crazy. I mean, it was literally just a couple thousand drug addicts just running amok. And yeah, we were out there for 4 years, and then the state clamped down, or the city, county, whatever, clamped down, and said enough is enough, and they rounded everybody up. They didn't get me at first. Like, they went through and arrested a whole bunch of people, offered them treatment, but we were pretty savvy on the streets. We knew they were coming. They did their thing, and we hid out from them for a while, and then eventually just got caught up. I got arrested down at the park just south of the 7-Eleven on North Temple, and went to jail and was offered treatment or jail time. And I did 4 or 5 months in jail, and they said, basically I'd get a year in jail or I'd go to treatment. And so I was like, send treatment all day. And that was the Operation Rio Grande. And it's actually worked out very well because, I completed drug court and treatment, which was conditions of my probation, to have my charges reduced. So I went to jail on a felony possession charge, and they reduced that down to like a class A. They reduced it down to a misdemeanor, so then I'm not a felon and all that. And yeah, that's basically what Operation Rio Grande was. I think
Let me ask you, Ramsey. Let me ask you a political question here. The ACLU has really criticized Operation Rio Grande as being an unfair treatment of people who were living down there on the street, and it was just a police harassment. It was a way overreaction to what was going on down there. What's your reaction to that?
So yeah, I've read their studies, and how much money it's spent, and I kind of stay up on that stuff. And I remember reading somewhere they're saying it was a war on the homeless, and I won't totally disagree with that. There was a lot of people who got wrapped up in the system that I don't know, they didn't really, yeah, it felt like harassment. I mean, even when we were down there, the county would come through and clean up our camps. And granted, yeah, there was a lot of trash and all that stuff where they would just come through and take your crap, they were pretty ruthless. They take all your stuff. I remember one time I was asleep in a tent and I woke up to my tent being cut open and them telling me to get out and they threw away all my stuff. I mean, that happened, I bet 10 different times. But yeah, there was I felt like it's a hard problem because there's so many people that don't want to be homeless, but they get stuck in that cycle. And it's just, I mean, did it work overall? I know quite a few people that I was homeless with that made it out of, addiction and are still doing very well right now. So was it heavy handed? Yes. Was it needed? Yes. Is it better now? I would say most definitely, but it was a little heavy handed. I mean, there's a lot of people that came away with charges. I mean, I have a record right now where I have, a few retail thefts. I think I have 3 retail thefts, but I have probably 10 charges of trespassing, criminal trespassing, where I would get charged with sleeping on a sidewalk or sleeping in a gutter or just, sleeping on just wherever because of the problem that was going on down there. So it was definitely heavy handed, but was it needed? Yeah, it's definitely better now. But the situation just kind of spread. You had everybody down there in one big fire, and now there's, a lot of fires all over the city they're trying to get put out. So it's a hard situation to handle. I'm glad it's not my job.
For sure. What was your addiction, and was addiction the reason that you ended up down on the street?
Yeah, I was a heroin meth addict. I was shooting up, daily, and it's kind of ironic because I hate needles. I really do. I can't stand needles, but yet I was sticking myself with them multiple times a day. But yeah, it was heroin and meth. I got started out with dental work. I got addicted to pills. And then I had a back injury, and I got addicted to I was getting Opanas, which is oxymorphone, and roxycodones, oxy 30s. And I would take, and I got addicted to those. And then I started selling those because you could make quite a bit of money off of it. And then eventually led to just a heroin addiction once I got cut off from my doctor. So I went from pills to straight to heroin, and I just got divorced in the middle there and lost my business, lost my wife, lost my house, and was literally made homeless from it. And yeah, that's kind of the choice I made. And I kind of did, I wouldn't say I did it willingly, but I did it willingly. And yeah, I'm living with that choice now, and I'm okay with that.
A lot of people wonder what would have happened if they had not had Operation Rio Grande. And I've heard it described as legal leverage to get you either into treatment or in staying in jail, I guess. What would have happened had that not happened? Would you still be out on the street, do you think?
I've thought about that many, many times because I remember the day I got arrested. I went to jail kicking and screaming. It would just be another time because I mean I went to jail probably, I don't know, 30 times where I was arrested, a bunch of times. And I thought it would just be another, book and release. Maybe I'll do a month, maybe I'll do 2 months, something like that. Because I knew they were cracking down on it. But once I got in there and I got arraigned and all that, I realized that they weren't letting me out. And my public defender said, yeah, this is a pretty serious charge and they're not messing around. So once I knew getting out, I was like, all right, this is probably the time to get it. But I'd probably still be out there. It's a hard cycle of that addiction to break. It really is. And without jail, I probably would have got sick enough of it, or I would have died. It would have been an end to a means one way or the other.
Also with that, so there's a story that is really dear to my heart of Ramsay's, and it paints a picture of when he was on the street, but also a relationship that has built now that he's in recovery. And it's the one with you and our friend Randy. And he's okay with us talking about this story. But let's be real with the people that are listening, like what happened on the street and then how you guys are today. And through also Odyssey House. Like let's paint the picture of how growth can work as well. Like if you didn't go through that.
Okay, yeah, good old Randy Burton. That's my boy right there. He's a good dude. So there was one time I was down on we called the block, which is pretty much Fifth West and in between second and third south, third and fourth south, right there by the Portland Loo bathrooms that they put in. I was down there hanging out with a bunch of the other guys just on the block, and one of my friends was I saw him walking around with there was this big white guy, big old buff dude walking around, a real clean cut guy. I saw my buddy walking around with him, and they were doing a transaction, and they're basically doing a deal, a drug deal. And my friend was trying to rip off Randy. So next thing I know, in the middle of the street, literally on Fifth West, right there, I look over there, and there's Randy fighting my buddy, and he gets my buddy. His name was Romeo. He gets Romeo in a headlock in the middle of the street in broad daylight. There's people everywhere, but this kind of thing happened down there all the time. Like it was madness. And so I look over, and he's got my buddy in a chokehold, and he's like, "Give me back my shoes." He was trying to trade some shoes for some dope or whatever. And I didn't know Randy at all, from anybody. So he's just some guy. But I knew Romeo. He was one of my buddies, and so I was like, I go over to him, and Randy had him in a headlock, and I was like, "Hey, let go of my friend." And he's like, "No, I'm not giving you back your shoes." And I said, "Well, I have a knife, dude. If you don't let go, I'm going to stab you." And at that point in my life, we were pretty crazy, and I was literally going to stab him if he didn't let go, because I didn't know him. So eventually I pulled out the knife, and he let go, and Randy took off. Well, fast forward, I don't know, 6 months or so, when I'm sitting in Odyssey House. I just barely got there. I maybe been there 2 or 3 days, and all of a sudden I look up, and here comes that same guy that I tried stabbing on the streets, walking into Odyssey House, and he turns out to be my roommate, and turns out to be one of my really good friends that I have to this day.
And they kept confusing each other too. They kept calling Ramsay Randy and vice versa, and now they're like the best of friends today.
Yeah, his name's Randy Burton, and my name's Ramsay Bryan. So in Odyssey House, you go by your last initial. So I was Ramsay B, and he's Randy B. And whenever we'd go somewhere together, he'd be like, "Hey, I'm Randy B," and then I say, "Hey, I'm Ramsay B." And a lot of people think when I say that, they think I say Randy. So everybody hear Randy B and Randy B. So it was pretty funny.
Let me ask you this. You said in the beginning that it's taken you a year and a half or it took you a year and a half to complete everything at Odyssey. People who don't understand addiction or treatments or long-term residential treatment services might say, "My gosh, that's a long time."
Yeah, absolutely. It is a long time. So to be totally, perfectly transparent, that was literally from the day Rachel picked me up until I graduated was a year and a half. So I did inpatient residential treatment where I was living with everybody else, a little over a year, maybe 13 months. And then I did the Voyager program where I was in my own apartment. Thanks to Operation Rio Grande, they got me into my apartment, gave me a down payment, and were able to get me into where I live right now. I live right above the gateway. Ironically, I live in the apartment that I used to sleep in the stairwell all the time. I literally lived right down where all this stuff was going on. So, yeah, I was in there a year and a half or year residential and then graduated. So it takes a minute to break that cycle. It really does. There was a lot of people who got out of treatment early who thought they were ready, and they all relapsed. A lot of them relapsed. So I think it's statistically proven the longer you're in treatment, the better your chances of long-term recovery are.
There are a lot of studies that have proven that. And, and one of the reluctance of just like if somebody would have told you when you first went in that, it's going to take that long, you might have said no. And we have a lot of people who probably leave when they're faced with, with that kind of time frame. But the way I look at it, I was like a functional alcoholic for several decades, and you can't just in 30 days or 60 days, you can't just turn around habits like that you've been doing for years.
No, absolutely. It takes a minute to break the physical addiction is one thing, but it's really the mental and the emotional that you have to work on. and realize, I remember this saying a lot, and it's said a lot in the, you know, the groups we would have at Odyssey House, is that, you know, it's one thing to physically break yourself of it, but then it's another thing to live life as a, you know, not a functioning addict, but just learning how to live life over again, live life sober, you know, so the sober life is okay. And that takes a minute. It really does. That you don't have to have a vice. You don't have to have a drink or a shot or smoke weed or something just to get by. I mean, that takes a minute to rebuild that mentality.
One of the problems I had was I didn't think I could have fun anymore if I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't drinking, and you know, somebody who might not have dealt with any kind of addiction would have trouble understanding that. But for I think for a lot of us, that's what we equated with fun. This is how I can have a good time with other people, is to be high. And so to readjust to that, you know, it takes some time. How'd you do that?
Uh, that took a minute. I mean, it seriously took a minute to, because yeah, when you go to these parties or wherever, there's people, you know, doing whatever they do, and that's just not. It's so readily available, and especially alcohol. You know, it's so in your face. You know, you go everywhere, people are drinking. You know, you go to a liquor store, there's beer at 7-Eleven, there's all that stuff, and then you go to a party, there's people smoking weed or doing whatever in the bathrooms and all that stuff. So it takes a minute to break yourself of that cycle, to realize that you can live a sober life and still have a good time. I mean, it's an everyday battle. You know, sobriety is so fragile. You go around, and I see this at the gym all the time. Like, you see people that come in and they're killing it at first. You know, they might be there. You see people for maybe a month, maybe 3 months or something. Then all of a sudden they disappear, and you're like, oh, what happened to him or what happened to her? And you hear maybe they went out, and then this just happened the other day. I saw somebody who was in our nutrition class who was cooking food with us, and I hadn't seen her for a year and a half, and she went out and had a, you know, another relapse, and she just barely came back. And I was wondering what happened to her, but that stuff happens all the time. It's very, sobriety is very fragile.
And what do you do for your sobriety today? Like, how do you maintain yours? And you recently became a new dad.
Yeah,
So tell us
yeah.
about that.
Well, I have a little son. He's about 15 months old right now. Yeah, right about there. It's funny. He's funny. So I have a 14-year-old and about a 15 month old. So, you know, I like to wait 15 years between kids for some reason. It I don't my kids are funny. I catch my 14-year-old son checking me all the time. You know, I was talking trash about my brother the other day because he made me mad. And my son said, he's like, hey, that's your brother, Dad. You should talk about him like that. And I was like, dang, kid, you're right. You know, it's funny. And my Ezra's his name, my 14-month-old. He's super funny. He likes to dance. He's just he's a bundle of joy. Little things in life to keep me just to keep me sober. You know, it's just like you're talking about consistency. I try to stay consistent. You know, I go to the gym, I get up every day, I make my bed, I go to work. You know, FTR is honestly my life. You know, I go there I get in 6 classes, 4 days a week. I take time off, and I just live life, man. I'm happy to be alive, and it's a good thing. You know, it's funny. I was talking to somebody about this the other day too. I felt like having to go through all that homelessness and those struggles, and I felt like all that stuff made me a better person, and I truly, truly believe it did.
How so?
So, you know, I would say before my homelessness, you know, you don't really look at, you see that guy on the corner with the sign, or you see the dude begging for food outside of Starbucks or change or whatever. And people look at those people and kind of judge them. You know, they're like, oh, this guy, he's whatever, whatever, your mentality is on that. And then once you actually go through it, and you're that guy asking for money out in front of Starbucks, or having to do whatever to get by, and you see the way people treat you, you make that eye contact with people, and you can see how they look at you. I've felt that way many times. I've eaten at dumpsters, I've slept behind them, I've slept in gutters. I lived under a bridge for a year. I know how it is to go through that struggle, and it's made me a better person for it. It's made me more sympathetic. It's made me love life more. It's made me happy to get up every day.
When one of the things that's important, I think, for people to stay in recovery is to be around other people in recovery, and it's a very strong community here in Utah, I presume, around the country. You and Rachel, like, eh, I'm curious, like when Rachel came to pick you up at the jail, because I picked up people at the jail too. You go into that back door and you guys come out and you're going to Odyssey House and it's like, oh gosh, what's going to happen? So Rachel, what did you think about Ramsay, and Ramsay, what did you think about Rachel when the first pickup happened?
Let Ramsay go first.
Well, I honestly, once you're in jail, man, and it's a pretty lonely place, and you do, like I said, 4 or 5 months, whatever. I work in the kitchen because it's so boring in there. You're just literally, if you're in minimum, you're not locked down all day. You get out like 8 hours a day, so you can do stuff, but it's a lonely place. Isolation is definitely a hard thing. So once you get, once they offered me treatment, I was like, yeah, send it. I don't care where you send me, I'll go wherever you want me to go, let's go. And I was just of the mentality at the time that I'm going to make it through whatever treatment, because I was ready to get sober. Once I got my mind clear, I was ready to get sober. And yeah, and then Rachel picked me up, took me to Odyssey House, and I didn't know what I was in for. I'd heard rumors, Odyssey House this, Odyssey House that. And then once Rachel picked me up, I was like, all right, she seems cool, so this program must be pretty cool. So let's see what happens.
Very safe answer, Ramsay. I like it.
What about you, Ray?
We'll go with that. Ramsay was really quiet. It was actually more when I was teaching Odyssey House classes at FTR that Ramsay and I really started connecting.
And
it was during those times.
How important do you think it is to hang around like at FTR or Odyssey grads or any other USARA or anything like that? How important do you think it is to have a community of recovering people?
I think it's paramount to recovery. It absolutely is. I use FTR and the connections through there to help maintain my sobriety. In fact, honestly, my lease is up in the apartment, and I'm moving in with Colby and Sam and Christina. We're gonna get a place up in Mill Creek in the next couple months. So I like to stay around those people. I use FTR's physical to help keep my mental straight. I have a bad day at work, I have a rough day, whatever. I can go to FTR, get some connection, laugh, be authentic and genuine with the people there, and just get it out, and then it gets me ready for the next day. So I'm certainly glad FTR's around.
Rachel, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, we're lucky because we get to work at Odyssey House, so we're around people in recovery all the time, which helps me in my recovery. I presume you as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was thinking when we were talking about the time frames, I'm like, wait a second. It's been 9 years and I still can't get away from Odyssey. Like I choose still not to get away from Odyssey. So I think it's fundamental to my sobriety. And I'm lucky. I don't just put all my eggs in one basket because I feel like life has a lot of diversity and is very situational. And so if I have several different outlets and different types of connections, then it keeps me safer. So I do have my FTR and I do have my Odyssey and I do have my meetings, right? And so there's a lot of different, I don't want to just think that one thing is just going to save me or that I'm ever going to be cured. And so sometimes I just need that banana. Like while I'm in school right now, Ramsay's helped me with a really big school project. And sometimes when I go in on Saturday, I'm so tired and I didn't have time to eat. And so he gives me a banana. Like it really actually has a lot deeper meaning. That sounds funny, but you have no idea how much it saved me at times. And so it's just needed. We can just be as we are. And then I can go to work and I get that same respect and support in the same aspect. And so I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have it. I know that.
Recovery is possible. And if you've just finished watching this podcast, which went by, the 30 minutes went by very quickly. And we all seem like happy people. So it's not a dismal thing that we're all in recovery. A final thought, Ramsay?
If you're going through recovery or you're just starting out on this journey, I've found, at least in my experience, once you get sober and you start really living I say an authentic, honest life, life kind of happens organically. So give it a shot, and you can live a sober, happy, fun life.
Some good words of advice. Rachel, any final thought?
Yeah, thank you for being here, Ramsay. You're truly one of a kind, and I'm so proud of you. And don't forget the bananas tomorrow morning.
I'm actually not going to be there. I have to work.
That's it. We're not posting this podcast. Oh, and also, happy Memorial Day. Honor those who have served. That's a message.
This will be posted after Memorial Day, but it makes sense to.
Yeah, I hope you honored the people who have
talk
served.
about that. And wow, Ramsay's not going to be there with coffee or bananas tomorrow.
Take it all back, like everything I said at the beginning.
Right.
Okay, well, bring the following week. Bring double bananas and coffee, okay?
Or
Ramsay?
Grubhub, right? Do they Grubhub bananas?
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Ramsay.
There's a way. There's a way.
Thank you for being a guest. You've been a wonderful guest, and I hope you inspire some other people to seek recovery because it does work. Thanks. And thank you for watching Odyssey House Journals.